I'm going to show you how I got the pattern for this sheer yoked crop top. You're going to need a basic shirt pattern, a ruler, a measuring tape, some pens, and extra paper. The basic idea is that we're going to take the front of the shirt pattern and split it into a front yoke and a front body piece, and we're going to take the back and split it into a back yoke and a back body piece. The yokes will be cut out of the shears, and the body pieces will be cut out of our main fabric. The sleeve will also be sheer, and the collar will be the main fabric. On your piece, you're going to mark out a straight line at the level where you want your two pieces to be separate, and you're going to cut these two apart and add seam allowance to both. So here are the two pieces separated. I have the yoke for the sheer fabric and the body for the main fabric. These are just going to get joined together and then treated like the regular front pattern piece. Let's talk about your fabric choices. For the crop top I showed in the video, I used this quilting cotton and this organza that's got stars printed onto it. But basically what you want is a lightweight fabric for the body and a sheer that can support the weight of it. For the example I'm going to be making for this tutorial, I'm going to use this satin and this leftover organza. But you can also use a mesh like this one, or if your body fabric is light enough, you could even use a tulle like this polka dot one, and it would look really cute. So because this is sheer, some of your seams are going to be really visible. I recommend using French seams. I did an example one here with black thread. You can see I sewed the fabric together wrong sides together, trimmed the seam allowance really close, and then sewed it together right side together. That encases the seam allowance fully. You'll also probably want to put a binding on the neckline because otherwise the organza is super scratchy and uncomfortable. Part 3, I'm going to make a shirt out of these two. Part 3 of the crop top tutorial, you're going to start with your basic pattern and then follow the steps from part 1 to turn it into the yoke and body piece pattern. Cut out your body pieces and cut out your yoke pieces. Join your body piece to your yoke piece. Seam together at the shoulder seams and the side seams and do up any darts you need to do. In this step you realize that what you ended up making is not what you planned to make and you just roll with it. And the final result. So I drafted this pattern right onto my fabric. I didn't fuss with a paper pattern or anything. It's super easy and it's a great afternoon project, especially for a beginning sewer. These are the measurements you'll need. You're going to draft 2 different sizes of rectangles. You're going to cut 1 body piece and 2 sleeve pieces. Make sure you add seam allowance before you cut them out. Then on your body piece, you're going to cut out an opening in the front following this dashed pink line, and you're going to round those corners off so it's nice and smooth. Then you'll sew your body piece to your 2 sleeve pieces to get a fun T shape like this, and then you just fold it in half, sew along the remaining 2 edges there, turn it inside out, finish the neck hole however you like. I did a neck band, which I just measured this opening to find out the size of. Hem your arms, hem the bottom. It's a really quick, fun afternoon project. It's kind of halfway between a cardigan and a bathrobe. These are the 2 easiest ways I found of drafting bell sleeves, flares, and bell bottoms. The first way is to make a separate bell piece, which is going to give you a seam that goes horizontally around the sleeve or leg hole. You're going to need the circumference of the sleeve or leg hole where you're going to attach your bell, and you're going to draft a circle or fraction of a circle. I'll link a calculator in the comments, or you can use These formulas I wrote here where C equals circumference. Add your length measured from the inner radius, add seam and hem allowance, sew up any vertical seams, and then sew it on to the sleeve or leg hole. The other way is to do a single pattern piece where you're going to take the pattern you make in step 2 and you're going to blend it onto an existing piece to make one single piece that'll have no horizontal seam and it'll just seam up right where the pants or sleeves seams are. Finish your seams neatly, they will be visible from the outside, and to get extra flare you can stiffen the hem of your bell and it'll make it really nice and ruffly on the bottom. Remember, the larger fraction of a circle you use, the bigger your bell will be. I'll show how to set sleeves in another video, but this is my formula to make a basic non-stretch sleeve pattern. You're going to need the measurement of your sleeve cap length, which will be from the top of your shoulder to the bottom of where your armhole sits. For most people, it's about 6 inches. If you're extra petite or plus size, you may need to change that. The distance from the shoulder seam to the side seam around the front of the armhole, and the distance from the shoulder seam to the side seam around the back of the armhole. You need your bicep circumference measurement and the measurement of your desired sleeve length from the top of your shoulder. Mark a horizontal line using measurements B and C, and where B and C meet, draw perpendicular up using measurement A. Draw down from where they meet using E minus A. This whole vertical line should be E. Make sure this will fit around your bicep. Connect these points using a nice curved line, mark the front and back, and then you're going to add seam allowance all around the pattern. Make sure you cut a left and a right sleeve, otherwise you're going to be so upset when you have 2 right sleeves. Okay, so it's a little tricky to explain, but I have here a shirt that I haven't put the sleeves in yet. So I have my front panel here and my back panel here. Measurement B is going to be the measurement around the armhole from the shoulder seam here, following the curve down to the side seam. And then measurement C is going to be that same measurement taken from the top of the shoulder seam around the back curve of the armhole down to the side seam. So it's really the measurement of the sleeve circumference, and you're just noting where the shoulder point is, because that's the part you need to be able to match up on your sleeve. I hope that helped. It's kind of tricky to explain and hard to see, but you're trying to find your sleeve circumference and noting where your shoulder point and your side seam points are. So I had to think for a while on this to try and come up with an explanation that's not too confusing, because a lot of this is actually just down to practice and knowing what pieces are supposed to look like. But basically for a dart, you're pinching a wedge out of fabric to make a larger part of fabric fit a smaller measurement. So you're going to need to know the amount of material you want to remove, which is the difference in measurements, and the length of the dart, which is going to be the distance between your small and large measurement. If I'm making a skirt and I have a waist that's 5 inches smaller than the hip, and a distance of 9 inches between the waist and hip, I'm going to create darts that are each 9 inches long and remove a total of 5 inches in volume. So I would make 2 darts that are 9 inches long each that are 2.5 inches wide. If I'm working with a shirt and a bust of 40 and a waist of 32, that's a difference of 8 inches. Let's say each side seam tapers in 1 inch of fabric, so I still have 6 inches of difference. I would make 2 darts that remove 3 inches each, going the length from the nipple to the waist measurement, and I would try and position them symmetrically. Part 2 will be linked in the comments. I just wanted to take a second to talk about math and pattern drafting and how I use math and pattern drafting, because I think it can be really hard to make the connection between what you learn in a math classroom or what you see online and then how you actually use it in pattern drafting. The first thing I'm going to talk about is circles. As far as circles go, I use the formula for circumference all the time. Circumference is the distance around the outside of a circle. Circumference equals 2 pi r, or pi d. R is radius, it's the distance from the center of a circle to one edge. D is diameter, it's equal to 2r, and it's the distance from one edge to the other edge going through the center. If I'm using it to calculate the radius I need to draft a circle skirt, the circumference is going to be my waist measurement. So I know C, I put C there, and I have 2 pi r on the other side. I use 3.14 for pi because I don't need that much precision. And then I just solve for r to get my radius that I'm going to use to draft the skirt. I can also use it to calculate the amount of trim I need for the outer edge of a circle if I start with a known radius and then just plug and chug into the formula to get the amount of trim I would need. This is part 2. I'll link part 1 in the comments. I'm going to talk about how I use the Pythagorean theorem when I'm drafting with rectangles and right triangles. So the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are the sides of a right triangle that meet at the right angle, and c is the diagonal, which is always going to be greater than a or b. Let's say I want to find the length of the diagonal from corner to corner of this rectangle because I want to see if my pattern piece is going to fit. So my rectangle is 5 inches wide and 9 inches tall. I'll plug 5 and 9 into my formula, and then I'll solve for c. So here my c is 10.9 296, and I know I can fit any piece that's less than that measurement across the diagonal. You can also use it to find the missing measurement if you know C. Let's say I want to be able to cut a 90-inch strip of bias from my rectangle, and my fabric is 60 inches wide. So I'll plug in 60 and 90 into the right spots, and then I'll solve for A. This is really useful if you need to figure out how much fabric to buy before you even start doing your pattern.